Hey everyone, welcome back to CerebralTackle. Today I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick to get your old kinked up soft plastics that have been stored in your box back into good working order. It comes with some caveats and a few cautions, and I've seen lots of other channels do tutorials and do it wrong. But today I'm going to give you a tried true way to get them back into shape and tell you what you need to watch out for. So let's get started. Like most of you guys already know, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to unkinking your plastic baits. Keep in mind, the larger the bait, the more dense plastic, the longer you'll have to leave it in. The smaller the bait or more supple the plastic, the less time. You want to be careful. Like let's say you're using a soft pour, open pour kind of plastic like a robo worm. You can easily kill the worm doing this. You don't want to leave it in for long at all. However, the more dense plastic, the larger the plastic, like let's say a full zoom worm or a Sassy Shad, something with that old school, thicker injected plastic, you'll want to leave it in a bit longer. A lot of folks say leave it in for a full minute, leave it in for 3 minutes, leave it in for 5. You're going to kill your bait. I'm going to tell you why. What this does, this method of boiling water and placing your bait in boiling water to unkink it, it softens the plastic back to its original state so that it will form back into the way it was molded. But plastic like that can only be reheated so many times. The more times you reheat it, the more it'll weaken that bait. Boiling it one time and getting it unkinked is fine. Doing it twice, you're risking losing the bait forever. You want it to still stay on the hook, right? You still want to stand up to a fish, right? There's my water boiling. Let's get to it. Today, for this demonstration only, I'm going to use this little tiny panfish assassin electric chicken crappie jig here. You can see that tail is so bent that even when I flip it upside down, gravity don't help it. It's kinked. So, something this small, we're going to put it in boiling water for probably less than a minute, maybe 45 seconds to a minute. Let's see if it works. Now, for this purpose, I've taken the water out and put it in this little bowl here. We're going to leave it in here, and then we're going to time it, let's say, for about 45 seconds to a minute tops. Now, I normally keep the bait in the boiling water with a good rolling boil. But this time I don't have that ability to do so for reasons, beyond my control. As you can see, that bait is already softening up because it popped right up there to the top. We're going to give it 45 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to pull it out and see how it worked. Now, before we get to the results, I want to give you a bit more information. This is a very quick tutorial. I need to throw in a couple things you're going to want to remember. Have your area ready. When you pull these baits out, you're going to need a place for them to dry straight. Don't throw them right back in the box. My wife hates me for it, but I tend to take a cookie sheet, layer it with paper towel, and put the baits out completely straight. For instance, here a while back, I did a whole buttload of Sassy Shads I had found in storage to revitalize them, to continue to use them because I love the old school styles. Well, I had cookie sheets upon cookie sheets layered with paper towels. Now, when you lay the bait down, lay the tail out or whatever it is you're trying to unkink straight. On a Sassy Shad, it has that paddle tail. With the paddle tail laying against the cookie sheet, it wants to bend one way or the other. Make sure you lay it out perfectly straight, that all the weight's distributed evenly, so that when it goes to dry and cool back into its set position, it'll be perfect. The last thing you want to do is boil a bait and put a different kink in it, like the opposite direction. Make sure it's straight, because what you're trying to allow it to happen is that bait, for the memory to kick in, for how it was molded. It's trying to remember the shape it's supposed to be. You're simply softening it up so that it can unkink itself and go back to its original form. It's the whole reason of boiling a bait. You're not getting the plastic to the same temperature it was at when it was superheated, put into the ejection mold. You're just trying to let it remember its natural state. Like I said, Always adjust the time. If you have a bunch of baits that need unkinking, play with the first one with a 45 seconds to a minute in a good rolling boil. If you need to go a little bit longer, go a little bit longer. I do not suggest anything over a minute and a half for anything unless it's huge. If you want to go up to 2 minutes, you're risking damaging the bait forever. Because remember, every time you do this to one of these baits, it's going to come out softer. It might not stay on the hook as well, especially if you go a second or third round, it's not going to. So be careful, play with it. Use 1 or 2 to kind of start out, get the feel for where you need to be, and go from there. But all these channels that say 1 minute does it, 2 minutes does it, 5 minutes does it, they're on crack, okay? Doesn't work that way. It depends on how thick the plastol was that was used in the injection, the content of it, salt, other stuff that's inside of it, whether it be salt or flake, all this makes a freaking difference. There's one more thing I'm going to show you too that you really need to know when cooling your baits. Okay, so you have your baits boiled, you have them out on your cookie sheet or your plate or whatever have you, sitting on paper towel to absorb the moisture. That's not where this ends. You're not done. After you make sure the bait is nice and straight and on something that'll absorb the moisture, you're going to want to let it cool for a long time. Keep in mind, that plastic just got reheated almost to the point where it was injected. You want to be careful with it. You want to let it sit out for at least 48 to 72 hours. I'm not kidding. Don't bump the trays. Make sure they stay straight. And I'm going to tell you one other trick that's going to help. This is the bait we just took out of the boiling water. I'm going to let it sit here on this paper towel to dry for 48 to 72 hours. Now, here's the other trick I'm going to show you. You're going to take a little bit of table salt and you're going to coat that bait with it. You're going to let it dry like that. That salt, I put on too much there, but that salt, what it's going to do, it's going to help absorb the moisture out of the bait. It's also going to help it reset back to its form a little faster by absorbing that moisture. And when you put it into the box, like I said, the baits will never be perfectly the same again. They're going to be softer, right? Which means even after you let them dry for the 48 to the 72 hours, they're going to be a little tacky, a little sticky. This helps those baits keep separated from the other baits you already have in that compartment. So let's say you boil a whole 24 of these things. It's going to keep them from sticking together and immediately forming kinks again. Let's say you've only boiled 1 or 2 and you're putting it back in with its buddies. Same thing. It's going to keep that tackiness from adhering to the other baits. I've said it a few times, I'm going to say it once more. Start off slow. Even if it's a bigger soft plastic, like a magworm or a super fluke, start off with 45 seconds with a good rolling boil. Don't go over a minute and a half even for a large bait. If it's a smaller bait like the one we used today, 45 seconds to a minute is probably going to be more than enough. You saw what that did for that big severe of a kink. The little bait's right as rain now. So go easy. Have everything set out and ready. Your cookie sheet if you have a lot of baits you're doing. Your paper plate with paper towel if you have just a few. Have something absorbent like paper towel they can lay on. Lay them out straight and even. Coat them in table salt. Give them 2 to 3 days to completely dry. It's going to work better if you're somewhere where there's less humidity. The less humidity, the faster they dry, the more moisture is pulled out of the bait, the quicker they go back to natural form. Anyway, I hope this helps you get baits back in their original condition. I hope it helps. I've boiled a ton of old man augertail worms and even sizes of sassy shads that they don't make anymore, and I'm still catching fish on them today. So, when you're going through your old baits and you find those kink worms, don't chunk them. Boil them up, get them ready, go out there and fish with them. So, I hope this helped you folks. Until next time, go get your baits boiled up, get them straight, and get out there, keep it wet.